Hey there, my name's Brashler, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about an ultimate Behringer XR in-ear rig. Now, this was a specific request that I had, and I want to teach you guys about a really cool setup that we can do with the Behringer XR18 and the Midas DN4816-O. Now, if you're brand new to my channel, I'm all about helping you feel more confident in your production gear no matter where you're starting from. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, the Behringer XR mixer is a fantastic mixer, and I actually just released a full course on the Behringer XR and the Midas M-Air series mixers. Now, if you're interested in checking this out, go over to my website at drewbrashler.com. There's also a link down in the description below to go check out that course and take a look at that. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get into this video. Now, the Behringer XR mixer has 6 Auxes and the main left right. And so what we can actually utilize this for is with our 6 Auxes, we can have 6 mono in-ear setups. Or if we link them as a stereo pair, I can have 3 stereo in-ears on the Auxes and then utilize the main left right either for feeding my PA, or I can even sneak one more set of stereo in-ears in on that main left right bus. Now, this is only if you are only utilizing the Behringer XR for your monitors. Now, this is going to be key for some gigging musicians where they are utilizing this just for their in-ears. So maybe what you have is you have your XR mixer and you have these 6 aux buses plus your main left right. So that's 4 total stereo in-ears you can set up. Now, utilizing the Midas DN4816-O, we can actually take the alternate out of our XR mixer, put it into this device, and then it can output 16 line level XLR outputs. Now, this is really cool because what you can end up doing is having your 16 inputs then go as a digital split out of the Midas box down here. So you have your 16 XLR inputs, and then what we can do is we can do a digital split and send them out here. So if you're wanting to interface with a console for front of house, what you can do is you can plug your band inputs into your XR mixer, have your full in-ear setup completely separate from the house system, and then the house guys can plug their 16 inputs from here. So it would just match what we have coming into our inputs here, and it would be identical coming out of the Midas DN16-O. So let me actually show you how to get this thing set up. So first things first is we want to give power to our Midas DN4816-O, and then on the back there's a couple settings that we need to set, and I'll show you that here now. Now, on the back of the DN4816-O, we have our alternate in here. So right here, alternate in 16 channel. Now, what we'll want to do is we'll want to connect a Cat5 cable, and I have a shielded Cat5 cable here, and I'm going to plug this into the input. Now, the next thing that we need to do is over here on our Stage Connect synchronization settings, we want to slide this first switch to alternate. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then the output mode actually doesn't matter in this case. Now, the next thing that we'll want to do is we'll want to plug that alternate cable into the alternate output of our XR mixer. Once we've done that, we can jump into our software for actually getting this set up. So I have my XR Edit connected here, and we can see that I have connected to my XR18. And on here, what I'm going to do is go over to my input and output. And this is going to then pull up my alternate tab. Now, the alternate tab gives you 16 channels that you can select from anywhere on your console. So we can see that I have my channels 1 through 16, we have aux ins, we have our effects, we have our buses and our effects, and our main left right. Now, I'm wanting to duplicate what's coming in on the inputs of my XR mixer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that alternate 1 is set to channel 1 as an input, or we can set this to analog. Now, there's a slight difference between these two settings. Analog is going to take it from the XLR after the preamp and then send it out the alternate. Now, if you're utilizing your USB connection for any digital inputs, then analog wouldn't include those digital inputs. So if you are utilizing, say, the USB portion of the XR mixer for maybe tracks playback, then you would want this to be on the input rather than analog. That way you can keep it the same across the mixer. And what this will end up doing is this will, right here, we can see that this is input plus mute. And what I'm actually going to do is change this. So this is just going to be input. So I'm going to right click on each of these and set them to be input. The other thing that we can do is we can go down here and set this to input. And instead of right clicking, we can just set this accordingly all the way down. So what this makes it is that all of our 16 inputs on the front of our XR mixer then gets duplicated to the DN4816-O. Now, this is after your preamp gain, so you have to be very careful to not be clipping and also be very careful to set a correct preamp level, because the audio engineer at the front of house that's taking the outputs out of your mixer, they are going to want to have a correct level setting coming out of your mixer. So you do need to be very careful about setting a nominal gain. So that means on your channel, when you're setting this gain, you want to target that -20 dBFS for your gains. Because if you happen to clip this, it will also be clipping the output out of the Midas into the front house feed. Now, once we've done this, we can then use our XR mixer completely for our in-ear setup. So then I can go and take my buses and we can go link these. So I will go ahead and select my bus 1 and I'm going to link bus 1 and 2 and go select my bus 3 and link my bus 3 and 4. And let's go ahead and label these. So we have in-ear 1 left, and then we can go over here and we can right click IEM 1 right. And then we can go over to bus 3, and this is IEM 2 left. Bus 4, IEM 2 right. We then can go here to our stream, IEM 3 left. And here to IEM 3 right. Now that we've set that, we need to configure these buses correctly with the channels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go select one of my channels, go over to my sends, and I'm going to make sure that all of these are set to pre-fader. And that way we can make it so that the main left-right can be our in-ear 4 left and right. And that way, if it is set to pre-fader, then all of the adjustments that we're making on our channel processing, so gate, EQ, compression, any effects inserts, all of those would be able to be heard by all of the in-ears that are being associated with this mixer. Now again, because we have our Midas DN4816-O set to our input, it is pre-processing. So all of the processing that you're doing inside of your XR mixer is just for the in-ears. It's leaving completely isolated those 16 outputs being directly off of the inputs from the 16 ins on your console. So now that we've set these to pre-fader, the next thing that we need to do is make sure to route the outputs. So let's hop over to our routing and we can go to aux out, and we have our 6 auxes on our XR mixer, and we want to make sure that those are coming from our buses. So bus 1, 2, that is our left and right for 1, 3, 4, that's left and right for IEM 2, and 5 and 6 is going to be our left and right for IEM 3. So we would take those, plug those into some in-ears. So for instance, my Sennheiser XS wireless in-ear, we would just plug those stereo cables into the stereo inputs on the back of this in-ear transmitter, and then we are ready to go. Now, we can actually squeeze a couple more outputs out of the XR mixer if we're careful. So we have the ability of utilizing our effects sends as an in-ear send as well. Now, this would take some of the outputs off of your Midas DN4816-O. So you do have to be careful to make sure that you still have enough inputs for sending out to your front of house. But say your band doesn't use the last 4 inputs on your XR mixer. Maybe you are just utilizing 1 through 12. So you have 13, 14, 15, and 16 available to you. What we can do is we can go over to our Ultranet out, and instead of taking our Ultranet 13 through 16 from our channels, we can actually send it from our effect. And so we can go find our effect 4 and start routing these up just like that. And so then we can go over to our effects, and we can actually just change this to be IEM, and this could be 4. And then we can go to effects 2, and this could be IEM 5. And this can be IEM 6. And this one can be IEM 7. And then that would leave our left-right bus to be IEM 8, which is stereo. Now, the only downside of this is that these are going to be mono in-ear sends. There's no way of linking these together, unfortunately. Now, the next thing that we need to do before we can actually get this to work as our in-ears is that we need to select our first one, and IEM 4, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to Sends and make sure that this is selected, which makes it global over all of them, and we're going to set this to pre-fader. And then we're going to IEM 5, set this to pre-fader, IEM 6, same thing, and IEM 7, same thing. One last thing that I like to do is I like to go through each of my effects and just set them to be a graphic EQ. So we can go dual stereo or dual graphic, doesn't matter which ones, just like that. Now, the very last thing that we need to make sure of is that when we're on our main left right, that we go over to our effects 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that we make sure that these are muted. Because if those are unmuted, any of your sends to those in-ears, or our, in-ear 4, 5, 6, and 7, any of the sends going to that would then go into your main left right, which is no good. You don't want that. And so by muting these, it's making it so that those will not go to the main left right. So what we've done here is we have set it up so that our XR18 has 12 inputs coming into the front of this, and then those 12 inputs are then being duplicated on our Midas DN4816-O. Now remember, the last 4 of our outputs on this device are for our in-ear sends for 4, 5, 6, and 7. And again, those are mono in-ear sends. But then what we have is we have our stereo in-ear 1, 2, and 3. Those are coming out of our aux outs. And then we have our main left right as a 8th stereo in-ear send. Now, one thing that you can do is if you didn't want to have stereo in-ears for all of these, you could change your settings for your mix buses 1 through 6 to just be mono outputs. And then you could actually have more in-ear sends. So let's go ahead and do that. So instead of this being linked, we're going to go select this and we're going to unlink. We're going to go to here and we will unlink that one, and 3, and we will unlink. And so then what we can do is we can just go name this. So IEM 1 and IEM 2, IEM 3, IEM 4, IEM 5, IEM 6, IEM 7, IEM 8, IEM 9, IEM 10, and then our left-right would then be in-ear 11, which would be stereo. Now, this is a lot of in-ear sends, and unfortunately, they would all be mono, which isn't a recommended thing from me. I always suggest doing a stereo in-ear send if you can, but in this case, we can get 11 in-ear sends, 10 being mono, and then the very last one being a stereo in-ear send. Now, that's a lot of in-ears coming off of our Behringer XR18. Now, again, I don't recommend doing mono in-ear sends because it's best to do a stereo setup. But if you do happen to need to have up to 11 in-ears being sent from your Behringer XR18, you can do that with the Midas DN4816-O. Now that's a pretty sweet setup that we can do on this. So this video, I was talking about the ultimate in-ear setup for the Behringer XR18, and I believe I've shown it to you. We have so many possibilities with either getting 8 or 11 in-ear sends off of the XR18, which is just nuts. But if we're wanting to utilize all 16 inputs to be able to send off to front of house with those 16, then we can actually do 4 stereo in-ears, which is a perfect amount for most gigging musicians. Now, I hope this video was helpful for you today. If you do happen to have any questions, or if there's a video that you're hoping that I would make, please put those comments down in the sections down below. I'm always reading through those comments to find videos that are going to be helpful for you. If you haven't already, make sure to check out my website at drewbrashler.com, where again, I just released a full XR mixer course on the Behringer XR mixer. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day.